Martin Scorsese's mob drama The Irishman is based on the book I Heard You Paint Houses by Charles Brandt. Brandt spent 4 years interviewing former mafia hitman Frank Sheeran about his life, collected the information and published the book. When the book was being written, Brandt did extensive research trying to back up or validate Sheeran's claims, driving with him to key destinations, and before the project was concluded had Sheeran testify on camera that he spoke the truth in his interviews and the book was not a work of fiction. Even still, there are many people who find the book I Heard You Paint Houses highly suspicious. Sheeran made some incredible claims, like saying he was the one who murdered Teamsters President Jimmy Hoffa, whose disappearance is one of the great American mysteries, and that he was the sole assassin in the killing of mobster Crazy Joe Gallo, despite it being widely reported that Gallo was killed by 3 masked gunmen. Even though the book goes out of its way to provide evidence for the claims made, and Brandt says he does believe Sheeran's story, many don't. Many feel Sheeran was either going soft in the head in his old age or was lying for some other reason. The Irishman's reasoning for spilling the beans after all these years was thought to be primarily to seek redemption and absolvement for his sins in life, seeing as though he had turned to religion in his twilight years. He may have also wanted to provide the Hoffa family, who he was somewhat close to at one point, closure in their desperate seeking of the conclusion of the Jimmy Hoffa mystery. As to the general consensus, it seems the book's claims are considered as it's possible. Some things may be true, some things may have a hint of fiction, and some things might be completely made up. And though Brandt managed to find a credible witness to back up the claim that Sheeran killed Joe Gallo, many people remain unconvinced. We know for a fact that Sheeran was in the mafia's inner circle, and he knew both Hoffa and Russell Bufalino, among other things. But even if he was speaking the truth, there are things in the book that are going to be difficult for audiences to swallow, because claims are made that alter our perception of historic events. For example, and this is probably the most major example, Sheeran says that the assassination of JFK was, at least in part, a mob hit. As for myself, I think Sheeran's testimony does sound believable, I guess. Some parts are a bit of a stretch, like JFK's murder being orchestrated by the mafia. That is really difficult to believe. But it's a case with many elements of the story that you say to yourself, there's really not a lot to counter many claims made. Then again, I'm in no way an expert on any of the events covered in the book. Do I believe Sheeran? Well, I don't see any reason not to. He clearly was involved to some extent in many events. The timeline and weaving between established history and Sheeran's personal anecdotes seems plausible. Did he exaggerate his involvement in some events? Did his depression and medication make him an unreliable witness? Who knows? I suppose we never will for sure. One thing we do know is Sheeran wasn't telling the whole truth. He stated he would not indulge on certain aspects of his life which involved people who were still alive and therefore could be prosecuted as a result of his testimony. He also said that he didn't want his daughters to think any worse of him and that he didn't want to give a bad image of men he respected, like Hoffa and Bufalino. So the way he told certain stories may have what Werner Herzog might call elastic truth. And then there was the segment towards the end of the novel where Brandt is interviewing Sheeran in what is only a formality and affirmation, and Sheeran lets a new piece of information slip and refuses to enlighten. This suggests, as stated, he may have told the truth, but not the whole truth. So how will Martin Scorsese's movie handle the fact that the source material could be made up? Will they treat Sheeran as an unreliable narrator? Perhaps remove the based on a true story subtitle that we might otherwise get? Have characters in the movie directly tell Sheeran he is lying when he relays events to add doubt to the movie's credibility? Well, going off of the screenplay, there is one scene that seems to raise the question as to whether Frank was telling the truth or not. At the very least, it puts it out there and reminds you that the events you are witnessing are based on the words of one man. Very early on in the film, in fact just after the opening scene, the movie shows video camera footage of Robert De Niro as Frank Sheeran, who is sitting in front of the camera in a motel room. Brandt is filming and the screenplay describes Frank as distressed. Brandt is constantly asking Sheeran to do something, saying it's not what Brandt wants to do, but what Sheeran wants to do. Frank asks what it is, and Brandt says, "You have to say you stand by what you told me." In other words, you have to say on camera that you've been telling the truth. Frank replies by saying he already did it, to which Brandt says he didn't have the camera rolling. They go back and forward a little more until finally Frank looks directly at the camera, staring. He just stares though, and doesn't say anything, until he claims he's tired and wants to go to bed. He tells Brandt to turn the camera off, and he does so. There are many different meanings behind this scene, the most prominent of which is that Sheeran's need for absolvement of his sins is why Brandt says he wants to do it. But I feel this is also the movie's way of saying, take this story with a pinch of salt, given that the script here does make a point not to have Sheeran actually say he stands by what he told Brandt, even though at the end of the movie he does actually end up saying he stands by what he said. It's the only thing in the screenplay that even slightly presents the suggestion that the movie's events are not true, or at least partly fabricated. I think it's a fitting and tasteful way to do it. They've neither denied nor confirmed the validity of Frank Sheeran's claims, instead offering to remind the audience that the movie you're about to see is one man's story told from his own point of view. The Irishman is set to be released on Netflix in late 2019. Thanks for watching.